Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are tackling a subject that is, it's the most natural thing humans do, and somehow the thing we screw up the most often.
Right.
We're talking about connection, specifically the science of conversation and, well, why it works when it works and why it just crashes and burns when it doesn't.
It's the water we swim in, isn't it?
Yeah.
We spend our entire lives talking. Texts, emails, those Zoom calls, dinner table debates. And yet, I think everyone listening knows that specific sinking feeling
Oh, yeah.
where you're talking to someone, maybe a spouse, maybe a boss, and you just know you are missing them.
Well.
You're speaking the same language, but the signal, it isn't getting through.
It's like two ships passing in the night.
Exactly.
And on the flip side, we all know that one person who is just a wizard at this, they walk into a party where they don't know a soul, and 20 minutes later, they're like best friends with the stranger in the corner. You leave a conversation with them feeling smarter, funnier, just better about yourself.
Well, the book we're exploring today calls those people supercommunicators. We're basing this deep dive on the new work by Charles Duhigg.
Right.
And the core promise of this research is actually really encouraging. It says that being a supercommunicator isn't a personality trait. It's not like having blue eyes or being 6 feet tall.
No, it's not magic. It's engineering.
It is. It is a set of learnable skills. It's really about observation and, well, biology.
So let's start with the hook that really got me. When I think of a master negotiator, I'm thinking Hollywood, right? James Bond in a tuxedo delivering the perfect witty one-liner.
Of course.
But Duhigg introduces us to this guy named Felix Segala, an FBI negotiator, handled kidnappings, hostage crises, the highest stakes imaginable. And apparently, if you met him, he looked like a middle-aged down.
Soft voice, a little padding around the middle. I mean, totally unremarkable. But his track record was legendary. And the story that really illustrates his method is the one with the snakes.
This is wild. So there's a guy barricaded in his house. He's having a mental health crisis. And he has surrounded himself with 19 rattlesnakes and 6 cobras.
Right.
The police are outside, guns drawn, terrified. Nobody wants to go in there.
For obvious reasons. And usually a negotiator might try to be dominant, come out with your hands up, or they might be purely logical, if you don't come out, we're coming in.
Yeah.
But Felix does something different.
He gets on the phone.
He gets on the phone and he starts asking about the snakes.
He asks for their names, right?
He asks for their names. He asks if they are cold. He asks if the guys worry about the police frightening them. And this is the key moment. Felix didn't try to force his reality onto the guy. He adopted the guy's reality.
He literally put himself in the mind of the snakes.
He did. It was a complete perspective shift.
And it worked. The guy surrendered because he trusted Felix to take care of his pets.
Exactly. And the science underneath this, because Felix wasn't just being nice, is something called neural entrainment.
This sounds like sci-fi, but it's real biology.
It is. When two people are really connecting, when the conversation is flowing and you feel that click, it's physically measurable. If we put you both in an fMRI scanner, your brain activity would look nearly identical.
No way.
Your pulses would synchronize, your pupils would even dilate at the same rate. You are, biologically speaking, becoming a single system.
So the mission of this deep dive is to figure out, how do we do that? How do we force that to happen? We can't all be FBI agents dealing with cobras.
Right.
How do we get that neural entrainment when we're just trying to talk to our teenager or, negotiate a raise?
And that brings us to the matching principle. And to understand that, we have to look at the 3 conversations framework.
Okay, this was a huge aha moment for me. Duhigg argues that we think we're just having a conversation, but actually every discussion falls into one of 3 very specific buckets. And if you don't know which bucket you're in, you're going to crash.
That's it. Most conflicts aren't about the topic, they're about the mismatch. So let's break down the 3 types. The first one is the what's this really about conversation.
This is the practical bucket.
It is. It's decision-making. It's analytical. What time do we need to leave for the airport? How do we fix the variance in the Q3 budget?
What's for dinner?
Exactly. It is about solving a problem using facts and logic.
Okay, simple enough. What's the second bucket?
The second is the how do we feel conversation. This is emotional. It's about sharing beliefs, pain, joy, validation. And crucially, this conversation is not about fixing anything.
Right.
It's about processing an experience and being understood.
And the third?
The third is the who are we conversation. This is social. It's about identity.
Yeah.
How we relate to each other, our social standing, our group dynamics.
The book gives this example that I think is It is the universal archetype of a bad conversation. The spouse coming home from work scenario. I think everyone listening has lived this.
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
So let's set the scene. A wife comes home. She's had a terrible day. Her boss is a nightmare. She starts venting. He doesn't respect my time. He's disorganized. I'm so frustrated.
Okay.
Now, diagnose that. Which bucket is she in?
She is squarely in the how do we feel bucket. She wants a hug. She wants validation.
Correct. But the husband, he loves her. He wants to make the pain go away. So he puts on his tool belt. He jumps into the what's this really about bucket.
The practical bucket.
He says, well, honey, why don't you just invite him to lunch and clear the air? Or you should write a memo to HR.
And boom! Explosion.
She gets furious. She says, you're not listening to me. And he gets defensive because, in his mind, he was listening. He gave her a great solution.
But he was trying to solve a math problem, and she was trying to paint a picture. They were mismatched.
Precisely. And this is the core of the matching principle. To connect, you have to identify which conversation is happening and then align your energy and mindset to that specific bucket.
If they're emotional, you get emotional.
If they're emotional, you get emotional. If they're practical, you get practical.
Now, I want to clarify something because this can sound a bit, I don't know, manipulative if we aren't careful. Is matching just mimicking?
No.
Is it just copying their tone of voice?
No, and that's a vital distinction. Mimicry is surface level. Matching is about goal alignment. It's about asking yourself, what does this person need from this interaction right now?
Okay.
If they need to process fear, you don't necessarily have to act afraid, but you have to engage with the concept of fear rather than, hitting them with a spreadsheet.
Let's look at a high-stakes example of this because the book tells the story of Jim Lawler. This is a CIA officer operating in Europe in the early 80s. And what I love about this story is that it starts with him being absolutely terrible at his job.
It really is a story of failure first. So Lawler is a case officer. His entire job is to recruit foreign assets spies.
Ew.
And he's just striking out.
He's about to be fired.
He's on the brink of getting fired. He's terrified.
The pressure is massive. And he finally gets a lead. A woman named Yasmin. She's a foreign official from a Middle Eastern country that was very hostile to the U.S. at the time.
She's in Europe on vacation. This is his one shot.
So he approaches her, and initially he misdiagnoses the conversation. He thinks this is a social interaction.
Right, the who are we bucket.
He tries to be the cool, suave American, takes her to fancy dinners, tries to charm her, and it just falls flat.
She enjoys the free food, but she's not opening up.
So his boss gets involved and basically yells at him, "Stop playing around, close the deal." So Lawler panics and switches to the practical bucket.
Right. He decides to treat it like a business transaction. He sits her down and essentially says, look, I'm CIA. We want information. We can pay you a lot of money. We can help you with visas.
The logic. Risk versus reward.
Exactly. He lays out the logic.
And in a normal business deal, that might work, but how does Yasmin react?
She has a meltdown. She bursts into tears. She says, they murder people for that. She literally tries to run out of the restaurant.
Because for her, this wasn't a transaction. It was a life-or-death emotional crisis. Lawler's talking contract terms, and she is feeling mortal terror.
A total mismatch.
Yeah.
And usually that's where the operation ends. But Lawler manages to convince her to have one last dinner. And this is where the pivot happens.
Okay.
This is where he stops being a bad spy and becomes a super communicator.
What did he change?
He realized that logic had failed. Charm had failed. He needed to match her emotion. She was afraid. He needed to show he was afraid too. He needed to enter the how do we feel conversation.
He had to go first.
He had to go first. That's the key mechanism. He couldn't just interview her about her feelings.
He had to be vulnerable.
Incredibly vulnerable. He told her a true story about his own life. He told her about working for his father in Texas, trying to sell steel components. And he told her how he was just terrible at it.
A failure.
A total failure. He felt like he was disappointing his dad every single day. He told her about a client who rejected him, but whose son he ended up helping with some toy blocks on the floor. It was this raw, honest admission of inadequacy.
He told her, I just wanted to do something important with my life, and I felt like I couldn't.
I mean, think about how risky that is. He's a CIA agent. He's supposed to be projecting power and protection, but he chooses to project weakness.
And why does that work? Why didn't she just lose respect for him?
Because of emotional contagion. Vulnerability triggers reciprocity. It signals safety. By taking off his armor, he signaled to Yasmin that she didn't need hers either.
He matched her internal state of insecurity.
And it unlocked her.
Oh.
Immediately, the tears stopped. She looked at him and said, I want to do something important too.
Yeah.
And that was it. She agreed to help.
For 20 years.
She became one of the most valuable assets in the region for the next 20 years.
That is such a powerful example of moving from the practical bucket, which was a disaster, to the emotional bucket. But I want to flip the script because I don't want listeners to think emotions are always the answer. Sometimes the mistake is getting stuck in feelings when you need to be practical.
Right. If your house is on fire, you don't want the firefighter to ask you about your childhood.
No.
You want the firefighter to be in the practical bucket and put out the fire.
Let's talk about the trial of Leroy Reed. This is a fascinating case study in how to handle a practical conversation when emotions are running high.
This was in Wisconsin in 1985. Leroy Reed was a young man with significant mental disabilities. He had the intellect of a child. He bought a gun. Now, because he was technically a convicted felon from a minor incident years earlier where he didn't even understand the court proceedings, buying that gun was illegal.
But he didn't use the gun, right? He didn't hurt anyone.
No, he bought it, took it home, and put it in the closet. But the police found out. He was arrested, and the law is the law.
So the jury goes into the deliberation room, and the instructions from the judge are rigid. It's a flowchart. Is he a felon? Yes. Did he buy a gun? Yes. The logic says guilty.
And this is where the conflict starts. Most of the jurors, led by a firefighter named Carl, are in a strict, practical mindset. Carl's a checklist guy.
Rules are rules.
Rules are rules. Ignorance is no excuse. But other jurors are in the emotional bucket. They're saying, this is unfair, he didn't know. So the room is deadlocked. They're yelling at each other.
Enter the jury foreman, John Boley, our super communicator.
Right. Boley wants to acquit Reed, but he realizes that if he argues emotion against Carl, he will lose. Carl doesn't care about feelings. He cares about public safety and the law.
So Boley has to match Carl. He has to stay in the practical bucket.
Exactly. He asks Carl, what do we really want here? Carl says he wants safety. So Boley constructs a new logical argument.
Okay.
He says, okay, Carl, if we convict Leroy Reed, we are clogging up the prison system with a guy who isn't dangerous. That takes resources away from the police. But if we acquit him, we send a message to the police to stop harassing harmless people and go chase real criminals.
Therefore, acquitting him makes us safer. That is some Jedi mind trick stuff.
It's brilliant negotiation. He didn't try to make Carl feel better. He aligned with Carl's practical need for order. He used Carl's own logic to reach a different conclusion.
And the result?
The jury voted not guilty. Bewley flipped the room, not by overpowering them, but by aligning with them.
So whether it's the CIA agent matching vulnerability or the juror matching practical logic, the key is knowing which game you're playing.
That is the matching principle in action.
Okay, let's bring this down to the ground level. Most of us aren't recruiting spies or swaying juries. We're just trying to get through a team meeting or a dinner party.
Right.
What are the actual tools we can use to do this?
Duhigg highlights two major tools. The first is for conflict and clarity. It's called looking for understanding.
This sounds a lot like active listening, which I feel like we've been hearing about since the 90s. Is it different?
It is a more rigorous version. The problem with standard active listening is that often we're just nodding and making eye contact while we wait for our turn to speak.
We aren't actually processing.
We aren't processing. Looping forces you to process. It's a three-step cycle. Step 1, you ask a question. Easy. Step 2, you repeat back what you heard in your own words.
Not just parroting.
No, don't just parrot it back like a recording. You have to distill it. Synthesize it to show you understand the meaning, not just the words. And step 3 is the magic phrase.
Did I get that right?
Did I get that right?
Why is that question so powerful?
Because it hands the control over to the other person. It lets them grade your homework. If they say, no, not quite, you have to loop again, you try again. But if they say, yes, exactly, something chemical happens in the conversation.
The tension drops.
Immediately. Because the moment someone feels seen and heard, they stop fighting. They no longer feel the need to defend their position, which makes them open to hearing yours.
I love that. It's a conflict de-escalation button. Okay, so that's tool 1, looping. Tool 2 is about connection depth. We've all been stuck in small talk hell.
Oh, it's the worst.
How's work? Fine. How's the weather? Good. It's agonizing.
It's a waste of life. And the research shows we underestimate how much people actually want to connect. There's a researcher, Nicholas Epley at the University of Chicago, who found that people actually prefer deep conversations, even with strangers. They just need permission.
This brings us to the fast friends procedure. The famous 36 questions.
Right. This was a study where researchers paired up total strangers and gave them a list of questions that got progressively more personal.
So instead of what you do for a living, the questions were things like, what?
Things like, what is your most terrible memory? Or, when did you last cry in front of another person? Or, if you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be?
Those are heavy hitters for a first meeting.
They are. But the results were wild. Strangers bonded incredibly fast. Some participants even got married later. But here's the mechanism. It's not just about the questions. It works because of reciprocity.
Explain that.
It's not an interrogation. You don't just ask the question and stare at them. You ask, they answer, and then you answer. It creates a spiral of vulnerability.
It's the Jim Lawler strategy again. If you want depth, you have to go first.
That's the golden rule. If you want someone to be vulnerable, you have to lead with vulnerability. If you want someone to be logical, lead with logic. You set the tone.
So let's recap the toolkit here. We have the 3 conversations: practical, emotional, social. We have the matching principle, align with the bucket the other person is in. And we have looping and deep questions to facilitate that alignment.
It's a complete system for navigation.
What I really appreciate about this approach is that it takes the pressure off. I used to think being a good communicator meant being the funniest or smartest person in the room. But this says, no, you just have to be the most observant.
That's it. Communication isn't about broadcasting, it's about detection. It's Sherlock Holmes work. You are looking for clues. Is this person stressed? Are they looking for a solution?
There's a great shorthand for this in the book that acts as a quick diagnostic tool. It's the aha moment for me. When you're talking to someone, you should ask yourself, do they want to be helped, hugged, or heard?
I love that alliteration. Helped matches the practical conversation. Hugged matches the emotional conversation. And heard matches the social conversation.
If you can figure out which one of those 3 they need, you are 90% of the way to being a super communicator.
And remember, it is fluid. It changes mid-conversation. A chat might start with, how was your day? That's social or heard. Then it moves to, I'm really worried about this project. That's emotional or hugged. And it ends with, can you help me fix a spreadsheet?
That's practical.
You have to track the shifts. It's like dancing. You have to follow the rhythm.
And if you step on their toes, you just loop, I feel like I missed you there. Did I get that right? And you get back in step.
I want to leave everyone with a challenge for this week. We've discussed the biology and the psychology, but the application is actually pretty simple.
The next time you find yourself in a conversation that feels stuck, where you're arguing in circles or the other person seems checked out, just stop. Stop pushing your agenda. Stop trying to win. Instead, take a breath and ask yourself one question. What kind of conversation does that person think we are having?
Are you trying to help when they need a hug? Are you trying to be heard when they need help?
Identify it, match it, and see what happens when you just switch gears to align with them. You might be surprised at how quickly the door opens.
It might just change everything.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.